Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course, spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Rodrigo.
And I'm Steven, and you're listening to the Major Spoilers podcast, the podcast for pop culture and comic fans.
In this issue, episode 1128, Doctor of what exactly? It's a period of intergalactic civil war, of major spoilers and rogue paragraphs floating through space. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have won their first victory against the forces of boredom. Pursued by the Empire's sinister agents, Prince S. Schleicher races home above his starship, custodian of the comics reviews and pop culture perspectives, to remind you that we know you love comics and we do too. And the Major Spoilers podcast is on the air.
Welcome to issue 1128 of the Major Spoilers podcast. Thank you so much for downloading and checking us out this week. Had an interesting discussion over the news that broke today, the time of our recording, about the Marvel DC crossover event. We talk about that in the Major Spoilers podcast pre-show. You can access that pre-show, about 30 minutes of conversation, over on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Major Spoilers, or you can simply join in on the discussion about all of this over on our Discord server. There's a link in the show notes to that, and you can join absolutely free. A lot of very, very good people over there, some really wonderful people. I love reading everybody's comments, reactions, and commentary to things that we say and do here on the various shows. But we've got a channel for each of those shows and a whole lot more. Go check out the Discord server. In the meantime, let's do a few reviews. This week, coming out from Image Comics, it's We're Taking Everyone Down With Us #3 from Matthew Rosenberg and Stefano Landini. This is, I think we've covered through the site and the podcast basically every issue so far. This continues the adventures of Annalise and her robot companion, who, if you didn't kind of figure it out by the second issue, it's kind of her father's consciousness in a robot body. This issue kind of confirms it. Now we're teased with who might be Annalise's mother, and why is everybody so easily willing to give up when Annalise says that her father is dead. We get to meet more bumbling good guys and bad guys. I think this is where the humor in all of this comes from. I do find a lot of dark humor in this, quite a bit. I also like seeing Annalise basically saying, I'm just going to kill everybody. I'm supposed to be this good kid, I know, but deep down, I'm just going to kill everybody. And there may be hints in this issue that she may also have either some of her father's consciousness transferred into her, or that she may indeed also be a robot in a skin job body. But I'm thinking that she's a real girl. I don't think that this is a Pinocchio allegory, but I find this idea of, the James Bond villain, like a Dr. No or Blofeld or somebody like that, and the secret organization like Spectre. And then, of course, the good guys, just that they're all kind of bumbling idiots at the end. Not that people are tripping over themselves, but just that they are kind of clueless. Everyone thinks when you see a genius like Wile E. Coyote when he presents his card to you, when they call themselves super geniuses or super spies or secret agents or whatever, that, oh, these people must be really, really good at their jobs. And then the reality is, it's like, no, they're all just kind of idiots. Yeah, they got some smarts, but it's like book smarts, not street smarts kind of stuff. And I think that's why I enjoy We're Taking Everyone Down With Us as much as I do. Yes, there's a lot of violence. Yes, there is. Maybe by issue 3, things are moving maybe a little bit slower than my liking. But I think overall it's paced well for the third issue as we get a little bit more information dripped out to us little by little. I think smart people who know what tropes they're playing with kind of see what's coming ahead of time. But I find this series very charming, and I really want to see where it goes to in the end, to see if Annalise rises as, the supreme evil genius that maybe her father wants her to be. But for right now, I'm just kind of on board for the ride of a robot dad trying to protect his daughter. And she just is like, I'm not taking any crap from anybody. I'm just going to kill them all. Give me guns. Let me murder them with my fists. Let me at them. And so we're taking everyone down with us. Number 3, 5 Slices of Meatloaf. Really enjoyed this series. The art is really good as well. And I think if you guys are up for some tongue-in-cheek, dark humor about the world of secret agents and spies, you should really give this one a look. All right, let us jump ahead to, also coming out this week, Dark Honor #1. This is from Zysygy Publishing, which is an imprint of Image Comics. Matthew, what's going on with this one?
So Dark Honor, written by K.S. Bruce and Brian DeCubellis, who apparently are filmmakers, recently behind The Trust, if I recall, adapted by Ethan Sachs. And this issue's art done by Fico Ossio, who's amazing, by the way. Love his work. This is a story set in the early days of the COVID-19 panic in 2020, March of 2020 specifically. And so we start out in a nearly abandoned New York City with a meeting of various crime families discussing what they're going to do and who's in charge and how are we going to do this and is the 100 still going to protect us? And the answer very quickly becomes bullety, nope. So this is an important thing that you need to know because in addition to the COVID-19 virus, the evil forces coming to take over the underworld also refer to themselves as a virus. This virus is coming to destroy us. It's trying to destroy all of the 5 families' work and all take over the criminal underworld, and someone has to stop them. So it's important because as I read this issue, I was confused a number of times when they kept saying the virus X, the virus Y, whether they're talking about the virus or the virus. So we are very quickly introduced to one of the only young people left among the 100. And she is currently in prison, of course. But we do get to actually see her in action. And one thing I will say is you can tell that the people who wrote this or scripted or put this together are definitely filmmakers because this is 100% the kind of what I think of as the Ocean's 11 introduction, where you just see somebody in action. You're like, oh, here she is in the middle of her day. Someone wants to steal her food. Oh, she's going to kill him now. And so it's a really interesting sequence, which then cuts right to, oh, and you're being let out of prison because there's something that you need to do. And here's your 2 face masks, courtesy of the state of New York. And I mentioned this because that line specifically just made my skin crawl. As we go through the rest of the issue, we do continually see the themes of this is early in the pandemic. You're not supposed to touch people. You can't talk, to people 6 feet apart. At one point, people are being murdered and someone with a gun is shooting people down and screaming 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's very, very unnerving. And I'm not usually the guy who cries too soon, but at least for me, too soon. That said, I do kind of like the concept here, and I like what they're kind of taking into account. They're kind of taking, those moments, the early 2020 going into 2021, when no one was sure what was going on. Everything was changing. People were afraid even more than normal. People were dealing with things that are far beyond their kin, and certain people taking advantage of that. It's got, I hate to say cliche because that sounds really, really, insulting, but there are definitely some shop-worn bits of plot here. And the idea that the quote unquote, the 5 families have come together and they have their secret band of enforcers called the 100. It does feel like something that I'm familiar with, something that we may have seen in different places. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. And of course, as the issue ends, we do finally get to the point where, okay, it's clear that something is going on. And I'm not sure if this is about, now I've forgotten her name, about the main character who's on the cover, who's a lovely young blonde woman. If this is a bigger story where we're, quote unquote, getting the band back together, or if it's going to be something where, she is the last hope and we get some old warriors coming together, kind of a Rogue One feel. It has a lot of places that it could go. And that's actually kind of nice. But it also, just that knowledge and that thought process of, there are a lot of places this could go. And I've seen a lot of movies, and I feel like the setup is definitely going to go one of the places that I feel like I'm genre savvy and familiar enough to go, if that makes any kind of sense. Not necessarily a big weakness, but something that does make the story feel, I don't know, it doesn't necessarily feel like something entirely new, or even just like we've taken something that we love, like, hey, let's take Columbo, but let's do Columbo in 2023 and use all the modern stuff that we have and still play with Columbo, and we'll put it on Netflix. So all in all, story-wise, it kept really disturbing me. And as much as I love Fico Ossio's art, there is something about the coloring and the production of this that feels like, so how Grimm Fairy Tales has the really, really bright colors and bright skin tones, and even when it's a dark scene and everyone's a ninja wearing black, you have blues and greens and purples just kind of everywhere. It's a very saturated color palette. It's kind of like that. And that's, again, not necessarily a bad thing. It's a choice, a stylistic choice. It's just one that I don't necessarily like, because it feels like we're kind of building, an Ed Brubaker kind of world, and I want that dark and gritty kind of, the other guy who works with Ed Brubaker, feels to the art. What's his name, Stephen? You know his name.
Oh, Sean Phillips.
Sean Phillips. Thank you. I can never remember him for some reason. And there's elements in here that kind of catch that, but then there's also this really bright, saturated color. There's this, golden haired character in the middle of it who has bright pink skin and a red nose. And it kind of feels like it's working against itself. All in all, I feel like it's a successful first issue. It is not as successful as I would hope it have been. And it's not as successful as the absolutely killer cover made me imagine that it could have been. It's actually a little bit, I would say, a little below average. I'm going to go 2 slices of meatloaf for Dark Honor #1. I am coming back for the next issue. I believe this is a 5-issue limited series in its first incarnation, and I'm sure there'll be more if it sells like gangbusters. But just some things about it that threw me, and I am not yet ready for stories to jokingly talk about the days of the pandemic 5 years ago. So, definitely something to keep in mind if you feel like that's an issue for you as well.
All right. I am super excited for what's coming out next week, because we get to return to the world of the Sixth Gun. And it all kicks off with Sixth Gun, Road to the Sixth #0. Hit stores next week from Oni Press. What's going on with that, Rodrigo?
Sixth Gun, Road to the Sixth #0. This is Cullen Bunn and Brian Hurtt back at it. This is, in fact, the prelude to the new series that's coming up soon, where on like Sixth Gun's 15th anniversary, they're going to release the new Sixth Gun stuff. I don't know, man. Like, I am not immune to nostalgia, and just getting right back into Sixth Gun territory and having new characters, right? Because the world of the Sixth Gun is huge. And there's so much room for characters that we know to return, for characters that we've seen before to be in new situations. It's very cool, but also the Sixth Gun ended very definitively, right? Like, I'm not saying that what's necessarily happening here has to like retcon stuff or anything, because even in the ending of the Sixth Gun, they were like, yeah, there's a new world, but there's like remnants of this world, right? So I'm not sure exactly what direction they're gonna take the new stuff, but there's always something in my head that was like, but like the original Sixth Gun was good, right? Like, I'm worried that more Sixth Gun is going to devaluate. Of course, this is not the first new Sixth Gun project that there has been since the original ended, right? There's been multiple one-shots and small things and prequels and stuff that have come out before. But those all felt less definitive than a brand new series that they're really saying is going to be like all that in a bag of chips, a whole bag of chips.
Oh man!
So I'm conflicted about it. That said, very good. There are multiple. Basically, this is a prelude. So this is 5 versions of that scene in Rogue One where like Darth Vader is like hacking people through the hallway, right? There's like multiple characters, and this is going to get you like right up to the point where their story begins in the next issue. We have an old-timey kind of hunter guy. We have Ghost Eyes, and I forget the name of the girl he's hanging out with. Like Kafu appears in this, in the crossroads. And they're talking about a dream. A dangerous dream.
Uh-oh.
And you're like, freaking Cullen Bunn, what the heck, man? Like, why do you have to go so hard at it, right? Like, if they're like, oh, it's a monster, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not necessarily that interested in a monster. But it's like, no, the problem is that there's a dream that's like very dangerous. And I'm like, that sounds awesome. Okay, well, let's read it. So I'm going to give it 4 slices of meatloaf out of 5. It's very good. Brian Hurtt, again, completely in form, right back into the Sixth Gun way of doing things. It's good. It's fun. If you like Sixth Gun, you should pick it up. And I'm going to probably start picking up the new series 2 at the very least when they collect it.
Oh yeah, most definitely. This is a must-have for me. I know back in the day we read through everything and everybody seemed to enjoy it so much, and it was kind of that thing. Even though Oni Press had been around for a while, this was kind of the thing that everybody paid attention to.
Yeah,
with Oni Press, and I think a lot of people are going to be very excited about this series. I hope that nostalgia anticipation doesn't ruin it for everybody. But also, Cullen Bunn has had 15 years of more writing under his belt, and projects as good or better under his belt. Sure. So I'm going to put a little faith in him. I will be reading this probably tomorrow, just because I forgot it came out June 4th. I thought it came out in July for some reason. I think that's the main series comes out in July. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to reading this. So dear listener, do you know what else I'm looking forward to? Seeing some brand new names join our Patreon over at patreon.com/major spoilers. Another week without any new patrons. You can spend, $2 a month if you like, or if you want to get access to the bonus episode, you can go up to $5 a month. Here's what I'm going to do. Ladies and gentlemen, just to give you a taste. Everybody who wants a taste of this week's Major Spoilers podcast pre-show, it's for sale right now over on our Patreon page for $2. Normally I price it at $5, but this week I will price it at $2 so you can get a taste of what you get when you sign up for the full silver membership experience. You can find out more at patreon.com/major spoilers. I hope we see you there very soon. Okay, this week we are taking a look at Star Wars Doctor Aphra Volume 1, hot on the heels of the Star Wars anniversary from 1977. And for those of you that don't know Dr. Aphra, she first appeared in the Darth Vader series many years ago. She is an archaeologist, although we do find out in this volume that her doctorate or her doctor status has been stripped away from her because of some questionable things that she did while she was a doctoral student. And she is making a living now that she has escaped Darth Vader's clutches. She has gone back to the old ways by being Star Wars' Tomb Raider or Star Wars' Raiders of the Lost Ark. And she's going around the galaxy trying to find exquisite artifacts to get the mob off her back and to pay off. What is this Black Chewbacca's name?
Hursk.
Yeah. But yeah, just imagine Chewbacca, but with black hair head to toe. He also has a bowcaster, which we've talked before, Rodrigo, about, Obi-Wan Kenobi shows up in the first movie with a robe on because he's living out in the desert. So therefore all Jedi must have robes. I wonder if, Chewbacca shows up with a bowcaster. Therefore all Wookiees must have bowcasters.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we're so far into that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we get some murder bots, right? We get 000 and BT1 who are there to annihilate the competition. And then we get a quest for, quest to find the long lost Jedi or the Sith, based on a crazy thought by her father. And they go off across the galaxy looking for something. Now, that being said, there are parts of this that I feel, I forget what year this first came out, but there are parts of this that feel like maybe a little bit of Andor is in here. Maybe a little bit of Solo is in here. The Solo Star Wars story is in here. Although those, I think Solo would have come out long before this one did. This first issue did. And of course, a little bit of, like I said, Raiders of the Lost Ark in here as well.
Yeah, this is Doctor Aphra is if Belloc was the main character of Indiana Jones.
Yes. Do you like that?
She's like a completely unscrupulous I do like it because we very rarely see that. Like, we don't usually follow a crooked archaeologist, so it's interesting. It's something else. There's some kind of funny, it's like the Star Wars world isn't real, right?
Right.
So it's funny when she ruins somebody's career by crediting herself with a discovery on a planet that thing didn't come from, and now has basically impacted Star Wars archaeology irreparably, right? It is so many archaeologists that are trying to reconcile what the lies that she told.
Yeah.
It's, again, if it's not happening in the real world, it's pretty funny. And it kind of lets you know who this character is.
Did you watch any of season 2 of Andor?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
Have you watched the first season?
I have watched the first season.
Okay, yes. So Luthen is a man who runs I wouldn't say a curio shop, but an antique shop that collects things from across the galaxy. So in a backstory episode, I won't reveal too much about the backstory episode that goes on, but we do find out that Luthen, after he gets away from the thing that he was doing, he and his assistant are going from colony to colony selling artifacts that they have found. So he's not just a dealer in rare artifacts when we meet him first in Andor. He's been on the ground level. He's doing a lot of the things that Doctor Aphra is doing in this series, where it's like, oh, here's an interesting piece, and now let's go to the next planet where we know there's a buyer that will buy it, and then we can, trade up and move along, just very much like an RPG game almost. So I found that that's really fascinating. And because, Star Wars comes in with this idea that civilizations have been around for millennia, that archaeology seems to be something that pops up surprisingly often in the Star Wars universe.
Well, yeah, especially since it's complicated now because of the place of the what used to be like the Star Wars expanded universe, right? It's
Mhm.
like the weird canon and non-canon aspects of it.
Right.
But I mean, we have we have stories from like 3,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, right?
Mhm.
Those are kicking around out there. So yeah, there's lots of archaeology just to the things that we already know happened in the Star Wars universe. Forget all the stuff that we know that we don't know happened. So yeah, there's a huge, like, again, in Star Wars, like if you read the lore, it's like the hyperdrive. Like the hyperdrive has been around for so long that nobody knows who actually invented it.
Mhm.
Like it's been like millennia since the hyperdrive was invented. So imagine all the stuff that's out there all over the universe, right?
Yeah. The series Dr. Aphra just ended a year ago on the 27th, again, kind of coinciding with that release of the Star Wars movie. 40 issues in this series. We're only reading the first 6 plus. I think there is a free comic book day edition that shows us how she lost her or what she did. To get that doctorate stripped away. That would be the second chapter in the book, but I think that's the free comic book day installment. Matthew, did you like this? Did you like this this series?
I really didn't. And part of it is what Rodrigo mentioned. The thing about the Star Wars is that so often when we get into a Star Wars story, the trappings or the set dressing, whatever it is that you put into play to make sure we know are in Star Wars, are sometimes a little overwhelming. And in the first 15 pages of Dr. Aphra #1, which I think came out in late 2016, if I'm not mistaken, but we're introduced to Aphra's droid, who looks like C-3PO with a matte paint job, and his friend, who's an R2 unit. And then we meet,
it's not an R2
unit.
He's a 000 unit or BT unit. He's not an R2 unit.
He's an
R2. He's an astromech droid of some kind.
Yeah.
Yeah. He looks like R5D4. But
the one with a bad motivator unit.
Yeah, I'd say that's a deep cut, but he's like a major player in The Mandalorian season 3, which, by the way, is kind of an example of what I'm talking about. And then we get, the Chrysantan, who is very clearly kind of a Chewbacca character. And there's a scene early on where she's flying and doing something with her astronomy droid. And she's like, oh, we're going to go to this thing. And in the background, it looks like Cloud City. And I'm just like, I love the idea of Dr. Aphra, and I was a big fan of Dr. Aphra when she was kind of working as a sort of unwilling lackey to Darth Vader when Marvel revamped Star Wars. God, has that been 10 years ago already? Oh,
sure. If this came out in 2016, you'd think.
Yeah, because Star Wars, I think, restarted in 2015. So, I'm so old. But I also feel like this is an example of when you center the character who's really fun, kind of playing in the fringes of other stories, sometimes you kind of lose that aspect of what I really liked about them.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a fair argument, but it's almost like when you drive down the street, Matthew, do you expect to see a truck when you're driving down the street? When you're driving down the street, do you expect, or if you go to another town, do you expect to see a Burger King or a Wendy's? And
I think it's more
so to say it's they got to just jam in that this is a Star Wars by putting in all these Star Wars things. Well, yeah, because astromech droids, protocol droids, maybe not Wookiees, because I think Wookiees should be a rare thing. But to see the Empire with the stormtroopers walking around, this is occupied territory. So I don't think that it should be out of the question to say, oh, here's all this Star Wars stuff in a Star Wars world. And
well, and yet I don't think that that's the point that I'm making either. I think the point that I'm making here is it's not just that when I walk down the street, I see a truck. It's that there's a particular red 1970 Chevrolet that sits at the end of my block. And if a story featuring, anything related to me were being told with a different character, there would have to be that same truck in a different color so you'd know that it's a Matthew story. Like, I understand we're going to see spaceships, we're going to see Jedi. You can't do Star Wars without an Empire or, the stormtroopers and the droids. But the fact that BT and 000 are very clearly meant to be those dark mirrors of R2 and C-3PO. And, we have this guy who's very clearly meant to be, this is what Chewbacca could be if he were a heartless crime lord.
Because it's specifically those three things, it does feel very much like here's the bad versions of your favorite Star Wars characters, right? It's like if they had only kept it to two of those things, it wouldn't feel like that. Because there's specifically a bad Wookiee, a bad protocol droid, and a bad astromech droid, it's like it just invites that comparison so hard.
Wait until I don't know if it was in the Darth Vader story, but she and Han Solo have a past history with one another.
Sure.
And I don't know if they were boyfriend or girlfriend, but because they travel in the same circles, it's not a surprise that criminals know criminals kind of thing.
She seems way too young to have dated.
I have to go back and read that. In fact, I thought when the Han Solo story came out, I thought that the main love interest at the end of the movie, I thought that was going to be Doctor Aphra until it turned out not to be. But that's how old that is.
Well, I guess, and in 1977, Harrison Ford was 35 and Carrie Fisher was 19. And, they had a heavily implied romance too. But I don't know.
I say also, I know that Doctor Aphra is like an old character, but just to begin with, it's weird that there are just characters named doctors in Star Wars, right? Right.
Yeah.
One thing that's always kind of thrown me off about this character is that she has a doctorate, and it's like, there is something about there are things about Star Wars that are very similar to our own world, and if you watched Skeleton Crew, there's suburb planets.
Yeah,
right.
So we keep getting closer and closer and closer,
and everything.
Yeah. So, but they go out of their way to use language that, at least in the United States, isn't very common, right? You have chancellors, you have I don't know, I guess governors are a thing, but also a governor is, I would say, a more general thing than a doctor. You need somebody to sit on top of a principality, right? Doctors are a very specific kind of modern thing. And I know there's been doctors for a long time. So maybe that's the problem, right? Maybe I think of a doctor as being too modern of a thing, whereas in fact, there's actually been doctors for as long as there's been an English word to refer to them.
Yeah. I really like this story myself. Give me an adventure story that has a bunch of myth and lore and people trying to piece things together and have it be a big set piece at the end. I'm down for all of that. If the whole series with nothing but them going on adventure after adventure, very much like the Tomb Raider series that Dark Horse put out decades ago. I'd be down for reading this entire series. I know we've read basically a sixth of it already, but I really got a kick out of this.
See, and I really liked some of the art. I loved near the end, and I don't know if did Kev Walker do all 6 issues here or all 5 issues?
I would imagine so. I would, but you're specifically talking about that last issue when they arrive on the treasure planet. Yeah,
issue 5. I think it's 5 because it feels like there's 6 issues here because they put in.
Yeah, Kev Walker does the pencils on that. Now, Mark Deering does the inks now on that issue. I don't know if he does the inks. Let me look here really quick. Yeah, Mark Deering does the inks, so they're on for the whole series.
Okay. See, and I feel like for some reason, looking at the first issue, I'm not as enamored of the art, but by the time we get to the end, especially that last scene where she's like, well, we sold a fake. that I really like the art, and I really like just the way that's presented. And it kind of feels like either we have, the creators were intentionally from the beginning going, we're going to start here and then we're going to get to this point and we're going to be like, yes. And now she's fully embracing her evil Indiana Jonesiness. But
I don't know if she's evil. I think she's in a gray area, right?
She's amoral, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Not immoral, but amoral.
Yeah.
And amoral of the story. But
it is this character is complicated, right?
Yeah.
And that's good. But it's funny that we get to see some of her backstory in the middle of this, because you're like, okay, so she's an archaeologist. She's working for Vader. Clearly, there's lots of people who work for the Empire who don't really have a choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The Empire is like holding something that they care about, or they're threatening them, or, I'm sure lots of stormtroopers were just like, well, I got to be a stormtrooper because the other option is getting shot by stormtroopers. So, but then we go back and see her backstory, and she's kind of a jerk to begin with. Right? It's like she wasn't like someone who, like, she wasn't at Indiana Jones who was then pushed to the dark side by circumstance. She's always been kind of an amoral person, and just kind of got into archaeology and has succeeded in the field of archaeology by basically lying and cheating. So, there's this very powerful thing that when you center a character, when they're the point of view character, when you follow a character, you start to empathize with them. We've talked about it before with characters like Walter White or Rick from Rick and Morty. We are like, well, this character is not a good person,
right?
But people kind of see them as a good person because, you're a good person and you like this character, so that character must be a good person, but they're not, right? So I think we're very much seeing this, and I think it's okay to be like, here's this very immoral character that exists in this very black and white world of Star Wars, right?
Yeah. I mean, Han Solo is the same way, right? I mean, Han Solo is a drug runner.
Yeah, but he immediately reveals his heart of gold, pretty much. He struggles. I'm not saying he doesn't struggle with it, but by the end of the first movie, Han Solo is solidly with the good guys, right? And like, Dr. Aphra doesn't have that moment. She does get personal moments that humanize her. That's important. She kind of reconnects with her dad. Her Wookiee, who is like, I keep wanting to call him her bookie because she does owe him money.
Yeah.
But he leaves her stranded, and then the next time they run into each other, she's like, "I get it," this is a fun, interesting character. She gets some growth throughout this, but like, she's not a good person. So I think in the world of Star Wars, this is like a real kind of struggle to reconcile, since you usually have very bad guys and very good guys.
And maybe it is because, as you said, Han Solo quickly shows that he's a good guy. Maybe this is that we can't show you Han Solo before he was Han Solo as you know him, because he would have been just like Doctor Aphra. So here's Doctor Aphra. She's basically Han Solo before he meets Luke and the princess.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point.
And so that could be a good reasoning for this. I find her an interesting character. Again, I want to see the shenanigans that they get up to. And I'm specifically very curious about how this first arc ends, because they have this thing, this crystal that contains the body of an ancient evil guy who is taking over robots. And there's this whole arc that happened. And I can't remember what the name of the arc is, but there's a whole crossover event that happens in the Star Wars universe where all these droids go evil. Now, I think that is not because of this. I think it's because of something else that showed up in one of the Star Wars Rebels episodes, or maybe it was, there's something about some liquid or something that's being pumped through a bunch of droids and making them go evil. But when I read this and saw what the evil crystal was at the end, I was like, ooh, I wonder if this is the thing that kicked off that big Star Wars evil droid event.
That would have been fun.
Yeah, Dark Droids, which was from like
Dark
2023, I think.
Yeah, so it was right around the end of this.
Somewhere there was like
series.
a sentient computer that started basically making the droids hate each other.
Yeah.
Or rather hate humans and want to kill all humans.
Yeah.
It's probably Bender.
Yeah. It's finally the crossover we've been asking for.
Exactly.
I am fine with the occasional guest appearance, like that one guy with the mustache from the Empire that shows up, who was on Empire Strikes Back. He pops up in here. I'm fine with those kind of appearances, just so you can go, oh yeah, it's that guy. I don't have really a problem with that. I would have liked this arc to go just a little bit longer, but maybe it was, we got to try this thing out and see if it can even go 6 issues before we cancel it. Cause this could have easily been a 12 issue arc. What we know about, KTSO, or K2SO from Andor and from Rogue One. I could see a lot more of that type of stuff playing out with 000 and BT Dubs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when we first meet 000, but there's a lot of HK-47 in there too, right? From Knights of the Old Republic video game. Like the misanthropic droid is not a new concept in Star Wars.
Rogue One came out in what, 2016?
Don't remember.
I don't remember.
Because I think 000 came out. Yeah, 000 came out right about the same time. He was with Doctor Aphra when she was working for Vader in the main Star Wars series.
Yeah. I think again, I don't know when. Yeah, it's like I don't know if you guys played Knights of the Old Republic, but HK-47 is a droid that hates humans. He refers to the main character as meatbag the whole time. And constantly is like putting, like, you're the main character. It's constantly putting you down because of like your weak flesh and things like that. But he never really does anything much besides that. So it's interesting, and the idea is that, there's like protocols that prevent it from like killing its own master or whatever. So you're like, I guess that's actually probably something that 000 has going too. But yeah, this is like the next step, right? Like you never really see HK-47 do anything like outright mega evil, at least not in the times that I played. But 000 takes initiative. He just like goes off and kills people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What you guys think of the Rashomon bit, where it's like, here's my take on this historical element. No, here's my take on this historical element. And then we find out it's kind of neither one of those two.
I'm always down for a Rashomon story, and I feel like this one actually works for the most part in a way that some don't. But there's also, again, there's that question when you are kind of going through a story like that, where do we get the ambiguity? Where does the ambiguity come from, I guess? And I kind of felt like neither story or none of the stories was true from the beginning, which may have been the point. I mean, it may be one of those moments where we're trying to subvert that expectation that we all know of, it turns out that the elephant is like a fan. No, wait, it's like a tree. And the real answer is the elephant is like an AT-AT, only with a longer nose.
And it will also kill you. So there you go.
Exactly.
Rodrigo, what are your final thoughts on Doctor Aphra? Volume 1, at least.
Yeah. It was enjoyable. I didn't read this Star Wars line. So even though I had seen bits and pieces of the character just in other random people talking about her and stuff that I like, random issues that I picked up, this was a good introduction to the character. I like I probably like the idea of Dr. Aphra more than I like her in practice. But because of that, I know that there's lots of places where you can take this character. So for me, this is a definitely borrow, if not like go out and buy. If like that, I mean, if you saw her in the Darth Vader series and you like that, this is more of that, right? But for me, I would definitely borrow this from someone.
Yeah. What about you, Matthew?
I would agree. And, one thing that's important for me to point out is it's not my jam. That doesn't necessarily make it bad comics. It doesn't make it the comic that I kind of wanted to see with Aphra in it, even though I know Aphra is, her last name, blah, 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 fish cakes. But I think that for me, the borrow comes from this as an introductory arc really feels like as much explaining to me where she fits in the Star Wars universe, which means I have to know the Star Wars universe, and I have to have a very good idea of, the basic stratification of things. And to some degree, everybody does. But I feel like there's a lot of knowledge that you got to bring with you. And there's a lot in here where the creators are definitely saying to you, okay, here's where it fits. This is Star Wars stuff, you guys. Everything is cool. It's a Star Wars story. Don't be afraid. It's a Star Wars story. And maybe it's just the fact that in the last 9 or 10 years, we've gotten stories that don't necessarily do that as strongly, like the Skeleton Crews and your Amanda DeLoreans. Yes, they're there. Sometimes they're obvious, but it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of Star Wars, and especially if you're a fan of Marvel's modern Star Wars oeuvre, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I really got a kick out of this. I think people should check it out. Dr. Aphra has been, I don't want to say incredibly popular, but she has been very popular since her debut in the Darth Vader series. And a lot of people really dig her. It has been of the canon comic book stuff that is not the Star Wars Prime or the Darth Vader Prime comics. This one has sold incredibly well. It went 40 issues. So that says something about what's going on with the character and the world that she is in. We have seen some of these characters appear in other Star Wars stuff, like Kyrgyzstan appeared in Mandalorian. And so, there have been rumors that we may get a Dr. Aphra series. I don't know if that is going to carry through, although the popularity of Andor may make that happen. But I would say definitely go check this out. I'm not saying go rush right out in a buying frenzy, but I would definitely buy a copy of it and read it and probably enjoy it, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. Now, if you're not a Star Wars fan, I don't know why you would pick this up in the first place. Because this is not for Star Wars, for people who are not Star Wars fans. This is not a casual read book. This is something for, as Matthew said, you need to know what Star Wars is. I don't think you need to know as much about Star Wars to enjoy this. If you know who Darth Vader is, if you know who the Rebels are, if you know who, Stormtroopers bad, Jedi good, I think you'll be fine with this series. I'm giving it a big thumbs up, and I encourage you to go and check it out. That's where we're going to wrap it up this week on the show. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Next week on the show, we are going to go into the world of Battle of the Planets as we check out Gotcha Man, Only One Earth. Why? Because we know that you love comics. We do too. And we will talk with you soon.
If I had the X-ray vision of a Superman, I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, they kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Think about a better way. If I was hulking green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I back and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. dark raven wrist like a man of iron. I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the heart cold to follow an entire storyline. But would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast, being shot up in a fun be in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler! What a major spoiler! Yeah, yeah, yeah! What a major spoiler! Whoa, 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 whoa! What a major spoiler!
This podcast is copyright 2025 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.